Let me see. No, no, come on, Belle, let me see, Jack said, trying to get his daughter to open her mouth. Belle just giggled and kept her lips closed. Don't make me pick you up by your feet and hang you upside down, Jack joked. Daddy, you wouldn't do that, Belle said with the confidence of a 9-year-old. Now show me, Jack said, looking closely at her mouth. Well, I guess most of your teeth are still here, even that big green one. Daddy, there's no green tooth, Belle said quickly. Jack and Hope Walker set up Belle's next dentist appointment. As Jack backed out of the parking spot in front of the dentist's office, Belle asked, Daddy? Yes, Jack said, catching sight of a girl walking on the sidewalk. Why does Mama seem to dislike you so much? Belle asked, without hiding her question. Jack glanced away from the rearview mirror, trying not to look at the girl and her bright shorts. The girl walked into a nearby store, and Jack turned his attention back to Belle. What do you mean? Jack asked. Belle talked about how her mother always acted angry when Jack came to the trailer. She wondered why her mother said mean things about him, even when she thought Belle couldn't hear. Especially when Grandpa's there, Belle added as Jack turned onto Whitehurst Drive. Sweetie, I don't really know, Jack said honestly. We had a fight a long time ago. Is that why you never got married? Belle guessed. Yes, exactly right, Jack said with a sad smile as he stopped the car in front of Morgan's trailer. Instead of letting Belle out of the car, Jack parked and walked with her up the uneven steps. He kissed her forehead and told her to ask her mother if he could talk to her for a minute. Okay, come on in, Belle said. Just go get her. Jack smiled, kissed Belle again, and gave her a gentle tap on the back. What did he do? Why? Jack heard Morgan's sharp voice asking Belle. What? Morgan said when she saw Jack. Her voice was cold and tough. Hey, Jack said softly. Listen, Belle asked me a question I don't have the answer for. I hope you can help. Jesus, what? I already talked to her about that stuff, Morgan said, calming down a little. I showed her what to do. No, Jack said quickly. The question was about the hard feelings between us. Hard feelings? What have you been saying about me? Morgan asked, acting defensive. Belle hears everything, Morgan, Jack said. Even when you think she can't hear, she does. She hears you and Richard? What? That's between, Morgan began, but Jack kept talking, not letting her finish. And she asked me why you hate me so much, he said. Oh, and I suppose you just made yourself out to be this sweet, innocent little angel, Morgan shouted back angrily. All I'm saying is, she hears you. You're teaching her, Jack warned as he started to leave. Hear you. You are teaching her. You need to decide what she will learn from you, he added. Go. Just go, Morgan snapped, then slammed the trailer door shut. The wedding is off, Morgan yelled, her beautiful face filled with anger. What? Jack asked, completely confused by her outburst. Why? What happened? You know what you did, Morgan said, her voice full of pain, even though tears ran down her face. Apparently not, Jack said calmly. Last night's bachelor party? Morgan shouted. Yeah, I told you all about it. We went to Terminators for video games and pizza. Then we went to Club Landslide, Jack explained. Honey, I told you everything. Courtney, Morgan cried. Did you tell me about Courtney? She asked. Who? Jack looked confused. Didn't think I'd find out about that, did you? Morgan yelled. Find out about what? Morgan, nothing happened, Jack said. I really don't know who this Courtney girl is. Jesus! Forgot her name already? Well, it's a good thing I found out what kind of man you are before the wedding, Morgan said, her voice breaking with emotion. She said again that the wedding was off and walked angrily out of the condo. Jack tried to remember who this Courtney might be, but could not think of anyone. He had only one beer at Club Landslide. He had politely but firmly said no when Desiree, a bright redhead, tried to catch his attention. He also refused a private dance from Catalina, a beautiful girl who said she was half Puerto Rican and half Vietnamese. Why, I've got the nicest looks and sweetest smile, she laughed, teasing him. Come on, baby. Don't you want to see what you'll be giving up by getting married? Jack just shook his head with a small smile and left the loud club. He called a taxi and waited outside in the parking lot. Just before his ride arrived, Dominic, his best man, came outside, shaking his head as if to clear his ears from the loud music. The two agreed the song played was terrible, and turning up the volume didn't help. But they both agreed Club Landslide had many beautiful women. So, Who invited that jerk Ernie? Dominic asked. I know, right? Jack agreed. As soon as he got inside his condo, Jack called Morgan. They laughed together, talking about Sebastian, Jack's old college roommate, and some of the jokes Robbie told. Well, at least the ones Jack could remember. Jack pictured Morgan playing with a strand of her long blonde hair as she asked about the women at Club Landslide. They're dancers, Jack said honestly. They move around with little clothes on, hoping to earn some tips. Think I'd be good there? Morgan asked with a soft voice. I think you'd do very well, Jack said with a smile. But the next morning, Jack faced a furious Morgan in his apartment. She shouted that their engagement was over and their wedding was off. After she left, Jack sighed and opened his laptop. Sir, the wedding is in 6 days, the hotel manager said nervously. Are you sure? Jack asked. Each vendor had the same answer. The wedding was just 6 days away. Canceling now would mean losing all deposits. The bakery wanted full payment, and the caterer said most of the food was already ordered. Hey, it happens, the DJ said. Actually, this might work out for me. There's that big celebration at Merrily Lake soon. Can I get a refund? Jack hoped. No, it's in the contract, Mr. Collier, the manager said. $17,000, Jack thought, as he started calling all his guests. Morgan could handle her side. $17,653, Jack whispered. His lawyer, Barbara Trenton, agreed to help file a claim to get the money back. After all, the loss was because Morgan ended their wedding. Jack told her he had done nothing to cause Morgan's sudden decision. You're suing me? Morgan yelled over the phone. Jack had blocked her number. Look, Morgan, I'm not just going to lose all that money, Jack said calmly. Stop yelling, or I'll hang up. When she kept shouting, he ended the call. He sent her a message saying all talks should go through his lawyer. If she kept calling him, he might seek a restraining order to stop the harassment. Jack told Morgan's father, Richard Halsey, the same thing. No more yelling or threats. All communication should be with the lawyer. Richard hired Brian White to represent Morgan. Barbara laughed quietly when she heard. Then the papers started moving back and forth. Brian filed a countersuit asking for $25,000, saying Morgan was emotionally hurt by the stress. He also sent a letter to Jack telling him to drop his case. No, counselor. The countersuit has no real basis, Barbara said with a small smile as she read the lawyer's letter. We will keep moving forward with what we planned. Barbara tried to set up an arbitration with the Benhurst County Court for the case Collier versus Halsey. Brian White caused many delays and problems. Finally, Beth Ustanak, a friend of both Morgan and Jack, reminded Morgan that the longer the case took, the more money Brian White was charging Richard Halsey. Seeing that what Beth said was true, Richard told Brian to let the arbitration hearing happen. The fourth-floor hallway was dull and worn down, even with the bright fluorescent lights above. Jack thought it was one of the most boring, sad places he had ever sat in. Even the new furniture, covered in thick vinyl over firm foam, didn't make the room feel cozy or easy. Barbara Trenton came in a little later. If she noticed how gloomy the place was, she didn't show it. Then Jack remembered she spent a few days every week in this building, so she was probably used to it. Do not, Barbara said sharply, when Morgan and Richard Halsey entered the hallway with a man in a fancy suit and a poor haircut. Looking at Morgan again, Jack was reminded why he had wanted to marry her. Her long blonde hair fell down to her knees. She wore it loose today. She looked tense and uncomfortable. Her big brown eyes looked everywhere but at Jack. They looked at the dirty window, the cracked clock, the worn floor, just not at him. Even when laughing at something their lawyer said, her lips stayed downturned. Minutes passed slowly as the old clock ticked on the wall before a large man came out of a room and called, Collier versus Halsey! Jack politely let Morgan, her father, and Brian White go in first, then followed Barbara Trenton inside. The room was even more sad and empty than the hallway. The furniture was soft and comfortable, but the room itself gave no warmth or hope. To help everyone, Scylla Ailes introduced herself as the arbitrator. She explained that her job was to help settle the case between Jonathan Collier and Morgan Halsey. If they could not agree, then the case would go to a judge. My job is to help lower the number of cases waiting in the Benhurst County Court, she said. Richard whispered angrily, There's nothing civil about this. Barbara Trenton then introduced herself and Jonathan Collier, who was her client. Brian White introduced himself and Morgan, but forgot to introduce Richard Halsey. Excuse me, Barbara said. If that man isn't part of this case, why is he here? That's what I was wondering. What do you say, counselor? Scylla asked Brian. After Richard Halsey was properly introduced and his name added to the records, Barbara began. She carefully put the receipts in front of Scylla and read the charges out loud for the reporter's sake. She also gave copies to Brian. Since it was entirely the decision of Mr. White's client, Morgan Halsey, to cancel the wedding just 6 days before it was supposed to happen, it wouldn't be fair for my client to cover the costs and lost deposits, Barbara said firmly. Morgan! A sharp voice called out. It was bitter and full of anger. Barbara turned toward Jack. He just shrugged. He wasn't involved. Brian White gently touched Morgan's arm and said that after Morgan found out about Jack's bad behavior at his bachelor party, she felt she had to stop the wedding. Since it was Jack's fault, all the costs should be paid by him, and Morgan was also asking for $25,000 for the emotional pain she suffered. We have receipts, emails, and text messages to prove our case, Barbara said, when Brian went quiet, looking pleased with himself. Yes, these have been added to the records, Scylla confirmed. But where is the proof of Jack's wrong behavior? Since Mr. White's client says this is why the engagement ended, what evidence do they have? Is there a written statement, or should we call this Courtney to testify? Counselor? Scylla looked at Brian, waiting for an answer. Brian and Morgan spoke quietly with urgency. Then Brian sat up straight and faced Scylla again. A person who was at the bachelor party told my client about Mr. Collier's actions, Brian said. Is there a written statement from this person? Anything to support their claim? Barbara asked, looking at Brian. Jack slapped his forehead. Everyone stared at him. Then Jack grabbed the legal pad in front of Barbara. So now you know who she is? Morgan said angrily, watching as Jack wrote, Ernie Woods, on the pad. Brian looked on, confident and pleased. Who is Ernie Woods? Barbara whispered. A little troublemaker, Jack said quietly. He was always after Morgan. None of us understood why he was even at the party. I didn't invite him. But I bet as soon as he could, he ran to Morgan, telling her all kinds of stories, hoping to get close to her. Counselor? Scylla asked Barbara Trenton. Ernie Woods, Barbara said, and Morgan's mouth opened wide. Who? Brian asked, looking confused. Counselor, ask your client if she had any talk with Mr. Woods on or before the morning after the bachelor party, Barbara said, not missing the look on Morgan's face. He, didn't want me to say anything. He's scared Jack might get back at him, Morgan admitted. And I want to take action against him, too, Jack wrote in big letters on the legal pad. Let's take care of this one first, Barbara wrote back. After more back and forth, Ms. Ailes said they should pause the meeting until Ernest Woods and Courtney could give their statements. Barbara agreed, and Jack nodded. Brian White also agreed, and the next hearing was scheduled for 5 weeks later, the soonest Ms. Ailes could fit them in. 5 weeks later, Jack sat in the hallway on the 4th floor, feeling nervous again. He fiddled with the zipper on his jacket. Outside, the big raindrops hit the window hard. Jack was glad his jacket was waterproof. Barbara stepped out of the elevator holding a large umbrella. She looked around the hall until she found Jack. He stood up when she walked closer. You like to sit in the same spot, Mr. Collier, Barbara said. Jack asked, and sat down again after Barbara took her seat. This is the same spot you sat in last time, Barbara pointed out. Nope. Just wanted to be as far as possible from that, Jack said, smiling as a cough came from the other end of the hall. Several quiet moments passed. People came and went. Each time the elevator dinged or a door opened, Jack looked up. Barbara just kept reading some papers. Jack didn't know if it was for their case or someone else's. Don't, Barbara whispered, when Brian White, Richard Halsey, and a clearly pregnant Morgan Halsey stepped out of the elevator and sat on the other side of the hall. She's pregnant? Jack asked, surprised. Either that or she's trying that new diet fad, Barbara joked. The watermelon diet? Where you only eat watermelon seeds. Hey, if law doesn't work out for you, Jack said, and Barbara smiled. Their case was called, and the 5 of them went into another room. It looked the same in there. Faded walls, dull colors, bright fluorescent lights. Once again, Priscilla Ailes introduced herself. Barbara introduced herself and Jack, and Brian White did the same. Scylla looked around and asked where Ernest Woods was. Brian shifted in his seat and said they were waiting for him. Counselor, this arbitration hearing was set 5 weeks ago, Scylla said in a sharp tone. Did Mr. Woods know about this? Jack hit his forehead with his hand again. While Brian kept mumbling, Jack wrote on Barbara's legal pad, "That is not my baby." Barbara drew a big question mark on the paper. Jack wrote that Morgan had just finished her period on the night of her bachelorette party, which was the same night as his bachelor party. Barbara nodded, holding back a small smile. Jack had spelled menstrual wrong. "We are not changing the date of this hearing," Scylla said, signaling Brian to stop his shaky explanations for their missing witness. "Actually, there's no need to reschedule," Barbara said calmly as she opened her binder. She took out 4 pages and placed 2 in front of Scylla Ailes and 2 in front of Brian White. Sitting down again, Barbara waited while they read. The first is a statement from Brenda Martin, manager of Terminator's Pizzeria and Arcade. She says there was no employee named Courtney on or before the day of the bachelor party. Brenda alone served the Collier group that night because they were short 2 waitresses, Barbara explained, then looked at Jack. "By the way, she said good things about you. She said you were polite and tipped well. Hey, I know she worked hard that night. Robbie, my friend, was a real pain. He thinks it's funny to tease waitresses," Jack said, defending. "But she did a great job." The second is from David Penny, owner of Club Landslide Gentlemen's Club. He says there was no worker named Courtney at his club on that night, Barbara continued. "Maybe she danced under a different name?" Richard said angrily, his face red. "They sometimes use stage names, you know." "And how would you know this?" Jack muttered, and Barbara gave him a warning look. "There were also no dancers with the name Courtney working there then," Barbara finished. "Both statements are signed and notarized." "Noted. Counselor," Scylla said, looking at Brian White. "Yes?" Brian asked, still reading the papers. "Do you have anything that supports your client's claim? Did you ask Mr. Ernest Woods for his statement on Mr. Collier's supposed affairs?" No. We thought Mr. Woods would be here today," Brian admitted. Richard got very upset when Scylla decided that the expenses would be split 70-30. As the bailiff led Richard out of the room, Richard shouted that Jack should start paying his fair share for the baby. "That is a different matter. One for family court," Scylla said as the door clicked shut behind the angry man and officer. "No need," Jack said with a small smile at Brian White. "Oh, so you will?" Brian began. "No." "Morgan had just finished her time before the bachelor party and our breakup," Jack said, watching the color leave Morgan's face as she understood. What? Are you sure?" Brian stammered, looking at his pale client. "And the wonderful Ernie Woods shows up again," Jack said, standing with Barbara. A few days after the second meeting about Collier versus Halsey, Ernie was walking from his part-time job at Charger's Chicken Restaurant to his mother's home. He forced a smile on his uneasy face when a pretty blonde woman walked toward him. She wore a bright pink sports top and very short denim shorts. Her belly was tanned and flat, with a shiny piercing that caught the late afternoon sun. Ernie was careful. He had already heard loud complaints from Morgan and even threats from Morgan's father, and pretty blondes usually didn't come up to him with wide smiles. Then he saw the big envelope in the girl's left hand. Even as her strong legs carried her closer, Ernie got ready to run away. "Hey," she said with a bright smile. You're Trent, right? Trent James." "Huh? No, I'm Ernie," Ernie said with a big sigh of relief. "Trent? James? There's no Trent James living here," Ernie added. "Come on, man. Don't lie, okay? Trent James. I saw your picture when I got the call," the girl said, now frowning at him. "I'm telling you, I'm not—" Ernie tried to explain. "Okay, then show me some ID," the girl challenged. Ernie pulled out his wallet and found his driver's license. The girl looked at it and smiled with a small, satisfied smirk. "And Ernest Randolph Woods, you've been served," she said, placing the big envelope in his hands. "Have a good day, okay?" She took a photo with her phone of a surprised Ernie holding the envelope, then walked away. Ernie tried to throw the envelope back to her, but she laughed. "Doesn't matter, dude. I got a picture that says I served you," she said before getting on her motorcycle and putting on her helmet. Ernie left the envelope on the sidewalk as he stormed toward his mother's house. A few hours later, a local boy found the envelope and brought it to Mrs. Woods' home. He didn't do this because he wanted to help or be kind. The boy just wanted to see Layla, Ernie's younger sister. When Mrs. Woods found out about Jack's lawsuit against Ernie, saying Ernie spoke badly about him, she went straight upstairs and walked into Ernie's room without asking. Ernie was focused on his video game, wearing headphones, so he was very surprised when his mother pulled him out of his chair. She started yelling at him about his foolish actions and slapped him a few times. After hearing about the lawsuit, Ernie did what seemed to make sense to him. He ran away. He went to stay with his mother's sister in Honey Beach, California. A few months later, he caused problems between a kind, red-haired girl and her boyfriend. It was only by checking dental records that what was left of Ernie was found. The boyfriend had friends who helped. Morgan cried a lot. When she realized what she had lost and believed Ernie's lies, she fell into a deep sadness. She thought bitterly, "And then you let that lying man," while resting her hand on her swollen belly. She wanted to feel anger toward the baby growing inside her, but when it happily moved, she couldn't be angry. Even when sitting, standing, walking, or lying down was hard. She felt a strong, deep love for the baby. The morning Belle was born was just like any other morning. Morgan woke up, made a bowl of plain oatmeal, mixed in protein powder her cousin said was good, and sat down heavily at the shaky kitchen table. "If you don't like it, why do you eat it?" Richard asked with a tired smile that didn't reach his eyes when Morgan made a face. "Oh!" Morgan suddenly grabbed her belly with a sharp breath. Even though it was Morgan's first birth, labor was easier than she expected. 5 hours after she arrived at the hospital, she let out a loud cry and pushed for the last time. Jack? Jack, what are you doing here?" Morgan asked when she was resting in her room after giving birth to her daughter. "Did you forget?" "My cousin Marie works here," Jack said with an easy smile. "So, what did you have?" "A baby," Morgan answered, tired. "A baby? Not a dolphin?" Jack joked. "Come on, a boy or a girl," Morgan admitted. "Belle." "Belle? That's a really pretty name." Jack smiled and reached into the bag he was holding. He pulled out a bright pink stuffed bunny. "Here, for Belle." "Thank you," Morgan said, taking the gift. After a few more quiet moments, Jack left Morgan alone and went to the nurse's station. He took out a soft blue bear from his bag and quietly told the nurse to give it to someone who really needed it. Tears filled the nurse's eyes as she whispered she already knew just the right person to give it to. Jack stopped next to a smiling grandmother and looked through the window, trying to find Belle Halsey's crib. When he saw the tiny, bundled baby, he felt a strong, sudden connection with her. Belle opened her mouth to cry. Jack wanted to tap the window to get the attention of one of the two nurses in the room. His baby was upset, and someone needed to help her. Right away. "They are nurses," the grandmother said softly to Jack. "Your baby is fine." "Sorry," Jack said, smiling a little, feeling a bit awkward. "Is this your first baby?" the woman asked. "I have 9 grandkids," she told him proudly. 9. No ma'am," Jack said quickly. "She's not my daughter." "She's not?" The woman looked at him, raising one eyebrow. "No ma'am," Jack said again, smiling as a nurse picked up the baby. "If you say so," the woman said, looking fondly at one of the babies in another crib. 3 days after coming back to her trailer, Morgan walked slowly to the door, clearly very tired. On the shaky concrete steps, Jack stood holding a box of disposable diapers. The 2 boxes Morgan thought would last a month were all gone. At Jack's feet was a car seat, and behind him, a new stroller. "I hate you," Morgan cried, realizing what she had foolishly thrown away. "But don't you need these things?" Jack asked, confused by her strong reaction. Yes, I do," Morgan said, wiping her eyes and taking the box. "Can I come in? Can I see Belle?" Jack asked, placing the car seat inside the trailer. "Yeah, she's sleeping, but," Morgan said. Jack brought the stroller inside and followed Morgan down the hall to her bedroom. He smiled when he saw the little bunny rabbit toy in the old crib. "Hi," Jack whispered, bending down to look at the sweet baby. "Hi, beautiful," he said softly. Morgan whispered, "She's beautiful, isn't she?" "Absolutely," Jack said, gently touching one of her tiny fists before standing. The next time Jack came, Belle was awake, her eyes looking around the room. Morgan, feeling unsure, let Jack hold her. Belle stopped looking around and focused on Jack's face as he smiled at her. Richard saw this and quietly told Morgan he didn't want Jack coming around their baby again. The day after Belle turned 6 months old, Jack brought up the idea of adopting her. Before Morgan could say no, Jack talked about how it would help with money. Belle would be covered by his health insurance, making things easier for Morgan and Richard. "And you can't tell me you don't want to get out. Just go somewhere and take a break for a couple of hours, no baby," Jack said, holding the happy, talking little girl. "So, Belle, are you walking yet? Huh? You walking yet? Say no." But I'm really trying, Morgan said. Morgan asked for some time to think about Jack's idea. They both made it clear this was not a reunion. They were not getting back together. It's just that she's going to need a dad, Jack said. That's my job, Richard said coldly when Morgan told him about Jack's offer. This was no real talk. Morgan brought up the idea, and Richard quickly said no. Even the idea of steady help and benefits from Jack did not change Richard's mind. Jack Collier would not have a place in his granddaughter's life. Your granddaughter, Morgan agreed, feeling stronger in her own choice. But she's my daughter. I need to do what's best for Belle, Morgan said. Someone working for Barbara Trenton made the papers for the change. Richard hired Brian White once again to protect Morgan and Belle. 2 weeks before Belle was 8 months old, Jack officially became her father. Morgan watched as Jack cried tears of happy joy, holding little Belle in his arms. Wiping her own tears, Morgan signed the last paper and waited to get her copy of the legal document. When Belle's first birthday came, Jack gave way too many gifts. After he left, he was the last guest to leave their trailer, and Morgan felt a sharp sadness. You're still in love with him, Richard said angrily. What? No, I'm not, Morgan said, even laughing at the idea. One day, Jack took 14-month-old Belle to a birthday party. A pretty dark-haired woman sat in his car's passenger seat. Morgan nearly told Jack he couldn't take Belle. When Jack came back over 4 hours later with the woman still in the car, Morgan knew there would be no reunion. Her hard feelings grew stronger. That woman stayed with Jack for another 11 months. Then Chloe was replaced by Tanya, a tall, blonde woman. But when Tanya raised her voice at Belle for spilling juice, Jack told Tanya to leave and ended things with her. There were other women in Jack's life after that, some staying longer than others. 9 years after Jack became Belle's father, Morgan stood on the shaky steps of her trailer, listening as Jack argued with her about how she was acting. He was still just as good-looking as the first day he gave her a ring and asked her to marry him. Go. Just go away, Jonathan Francis Collier, Morgan said sharply before slamming the door shut. Morgan walked quickly toward Belle's bedroom. Before opening the door, she paused. Inside was the fairy princess room Jack had spent over 7 hours setting up. Belle was there, taking care of the turtles, Racer and Flash, in the big aquarium that Jack had helped her set up. Belle was also holding Hoppy, a pink bunny toy with patched ears and a missing tail that Jack had given her when she was born. Morgan stopped with her hand on the doorknob. Who am I really mad at? She asked herself quietly. Without opening the door, she kept walking down the hall to her own room. Later, when Belle said it was time for supper, Morgan still didn't have an answer, but she decided she would stop hurting herself by saying bad things about Jack, Belle's father. At least not when Belle can hear me, Morgan told herself as she used the microwave to thaw some chicken. 3 days after that moment in the kitchen, Morgan opened the front door before Jack could even knock. She wore an old gray tank top and denim shorts, her blonde hair tied up roughly. Jack stood outside on the uneven steps in his heavy work jacket, his hand still raised to knock. His face quickly showed the guarded look he had held around her for years. I made coffee, Morgan said. Her voice was calm and without the sharp tone she usually used. Come inside and sit down. You don't need to wait in your truck like a delivery driver. Jack looked at her. He noticed her bare shoulders and the tight line of her jaw. Without saying a word, he stepped inside. Belle was on the living room floor. She pushed her little hands flat against the glass of the large aquarium, watching Racer and Flash swim. Daddy, Belle said happily, not looking away from the turtles. Flash is winning today. Racer is being lazy. Turtles don't really race, sweetheart, Jack said softly in the warm, gentle voice he only used with her. He sat on the old, sagging sofa and took the mug Morgan gave him. I'm trying, Jack, Morgan said. She stood in front of him, arms crossed tightly over her chest. I'm truly trying to stop being so angry and mean in front of our daughter. I realized recently that I've spent so many years being mad at you for things that don't even make sense anymore. So don't look at me like I ruined the coffee. Just accept the peace offering. I'm not looking at you like that, Jack said calmly, taking a sip. I appreciate the coffee, Morgan. I appreciate the effort. I don't want to fight with you. I just want to see my child and keep everything calm, Jack said quietly. Suddenly, Belle spoke. My legs hurt. She didn't turn around. Instead, she rested her forehead on the glass of the aquarium. My bones feel like they're freezing inside. Jack put the mug on the coffee table and leaned forward, watching his daughter's back closely. Morgan uncrossed her arms and took a step closer. Belle, What do you mean your bones feel freezing? Morgan asked, carefully. Belle slowly turned toward them. Her skin looked very pale, which was worrying. But what made Jack jump up was the sudden heavy flow of thick red blood from both her nostrils. The blood ran down her chin and made big, wet spots on the front of her bright pink shirt. She didn't try to stop it. She just looked at them with wide, unfocused eyes. "Daddy, I feel really dizzy," Belle whispered. Without thinking, Jack hurried over and picked up the 9-year-old girl. He held her tightly. His voice was sharp and urgent when he spoke to Morgan. "Grab your keys. Unlock the door. We're going to the hospital right now." They didn't talk during the ride. No one said a word in the waiting room either. Morgan paced back and forth on the cold floor, fingernails digging into her palms. Jack stood near the reception desk, his face tense, muscles tight. Finally, the pediatrician appeared, looking very serious. His face showed how heavy the news was to say. He came right to Jack and Morgan. "I need you both to come into my office," the doctor said, with no soft words. "Belle's test results are back. We cannot wait until morning. This is very serious. Severe aplastic anemia," the doctor said slowly, as if the words were too hard to say. Jack sat straight in the plastic chair, his big hands resting on his knees. Morgan sat beside him, her face pale and her eyes fixed on the doctor's mouth. "The bone marrow isn't working," the doctor explained, still looking at Jack. "It stopped making enough new blood cells, the nosebleeds, the cold bones, the pale skin. Her body is struggling to keep her alive right now. Medicine can only give us a little more time. The only real cure, the only way for her to leave this hospital and live a full life, is a bone marrow transplant." "Test me now," Jack said firmly. He didn't blink or move in his seat. "I don't care what you need, blood, marrow, anything. Do the test now and get me ready for the transplant." The doctor paused and looked down at the thick file on his desk, reading the first page carefully. He slowly looked up at Jack, his face changing from serious to unsure. "Mr. Collier, I have been checking Belle's birth and adoption papers," the doctor said quietly. "Since you adopted her, you cannot be a biological match. We need a close blood relative." "I am her father," Jack said, his voice low and firm. "I have been her father since she was 8 months old. You will test me." "That is not possible," the doctor replied, matching Jack's tone. "Morgan, we already checked your blood from the sample taken when you brought her in. You are a half match. In serious cases with children, a half match is very risky. If we use your marrow, her body could see it as a danger and reject it." Morgan stopped breathing for a moment. Her hands grabbed the chair arms tightly until her knuckles turned white. "To raise her chance of survival from 20% to 80%, we need a full biological parent match," the doctor said, closing the papers. "We need the biological father." The room fell silent and heavy. Jack did not move. He slowly turned his head to look at Morgan. Morgan stared at the blank wall behind the desk. Her chest rose and fell quickly. "Morgan," Jack said. His voice had no anger. It was empty and cold. "Who is he?" The hospital cafeteria was empty. They sat across from each other at a small round table. Morgan did not cry or hesitate. She looked straight into Jack's eyes and spoke the truth, strong and clear, like a woman who had fought with herself for years. 10 years ago, on the night of my bachelorette party, I was at the VIP lounge of Club Landslide, Morgan said, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "One of the girls told me you were in the back room with a dancer named Courtney. They said you were laughing about how easy I was to trick. I was so angry, Jack. I was full of rage that I ordered 4 shots of tequila and drank them quickly. I wanted to hurt you, like I thought you were hurting me." Jack watched her silently. His face was hard and unreadable. "Keep going," he said. "There was a man in the VIP lounge," Morgan went on, refusing to look away. "He wasn't a regular. He wore a very expensive suit that cost more than my entire wedding. He bought drinks for everyone in the room. I sat next to him. I was very drunk, Jack. I didn't ask his name. I didn't care. I took him to a hotel room and I spent the night with him out of pure revenge. The next morning, when Ernie Wood said in public that you cheated on me, I used that as an excuse to cancel the wedding because I was too scared to tell the truth about what I did." 10 years, Jack said quietly. "You ruined my name, turned my daughter against me, and made yourself look like the victim for 10 years just to cover up something that happened in one night." "Yes," Morgan said sharply. I lied, and I was wrong. You have every reason to hate me. You have every right to walk away, but not today. Today you are going to help me save our daughter. I don't hate you, Morgan. I feel sorry for you, Jack said, his voice full of anger. Who was the man? Tell me a name. I told you. I don't know his name, Morgan said, hitting the table with her hands. I remember two things about him. He had a clear, deep silver scar along his right jaw, and when he left the hotel room the next morning, he forgot his lighter on the nightstand. Morgan reached into her pocket and pulled out a heavy metal object. She slid it across the table. It was a fancy lighter with an engraving and a special serial number on the bottom. Jack picked it up and felt the cold metal in his hand. Standing up, he looked down at her. I will find him, Jack said. Even if I have to tear this whole city apart. I will find him. Sebastian was in his high-rise apartment, typing fast on his keyboard. Jack stood behind him, looking at two computer screens. The serial number on this lighter comes from a small, special batch made just for members of the Obsidian Club, Sebastian said without looking up. It's a private, very exclusive club downtown. Politicians, billionaires, people who own islands. They keep clear guest records, but the system isn't connected to the internet and has strong security. I can't break in from here. Then we don't break in, Jack said. An hour later, Jack was in the back office of the Obsidian Club. The club manager, a man with slicked-back hair and a mean smile, sat behind a large wooden desk. I don't care who you are, Mr. Collier, the man said, waving his hand. We do not share guest lists. We protect our members' privacy. I suggest you leave before my security team forces you out. Jack stepped closer. He placed both hands on the desk and leaned in until their faces were very close. He didn't shout. He spoke with cold, calm anger, a man with nothing left to lose. Listen very carefully, you arrogant man, Jack said. My daughter was in a hospital bed, very sick and getting worse fast. The only person who could help her was the man who owned that lighter. He was the only one who could save her. I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't making a deal. I had all my life savings in a bag in my car. I said, I will pay you $50,000 right now for a digital copy of the guest list from the night of October 14th, 10 years ago. I added, if you say no, I will meet you in the parking garage tonight, and I will get what I need one way or another. The choice was his. The manager looked into my eyes. He saw no doubt. He saw only determination. Without saying anything, he typed some numbers on his computer. Then he downloaded a file onto a small drive and pushed it to me. I took it. 10 minutes later, I plugged the drive into Sebastian's laptop in the car. Sebastian started the program. Filtering the guest list from that night, he said, watching the names pass on the screen. Checking descriptions. VIP rooms only. Only one man in the whole building fits the description of a man with a scar on his silver jaw. The screen turned red. A clear photo appeared. Victor Sterling, Sebastian said, CEO of Sterling Biotech, worth $4 billion. Victor Sterling didn't answer calls from worried fathers. He was protected by strong security, layers of lawyers, and his great fortune. I waited outside the grand entrance of the Benhurst Charity Gala. Black SUVs lined the street. When the glass doors opened and Victor Sterling walked out flanked by guards, I saw the scar on his jaw right away. I pushed past the ropes. Sterling! I shouted, my voice cutting through the crowd and cameras. I held up a big photo of Belle. Look at her! You have to look at her now! Before I could move closer, a strong force hit my chest. Julian, Sterling's head of security, pushed me back hard and then pinned me to the ground. Julian pressed firmly and warned me not to move or something bad would happen. Quietly, but sharply. Victor Sterling stopped walking. He wore a perfect tuxedo. His face showed no feeling, a cold and thoughtful mask. He looked down at me on the ground, then at the photo of Belle on the pavement. For a long moment, he did not say a word. The silence was heavy. Then he spoke calmly, without any hint of fear. Let him go, Julian. Julian put away his weapon and stepped back. Jack quickly got up, breathing hard, his hands clenched at his sides. Bring him to my office tomorrow morning at 9, Victor said, looking straight at Jack. Do not be late. Victor then turned and got into the back of his armored SUV. The executive office was a large, cold room made of glass and steel. Victor Sterling sat behind his big desk. Jack stood in the middle of the room. I remember Morgan, Victor said calmly, resting his elbows on the desk and folding his fingers together. She was very upset and wanted to blame the world for what happened to her. We had an agreement. It was simple and based on business. I am not a bad person, Mr. Collier. When you confronted me last night, I had my medical team reach out to the hospital. This morning, I gave my DNA and a bone marrow sample on my own. Jack's chest tightened. And? I am a 100% perfect match, Victor said. Jack closed his eyes and took a deep, shaky breath. The relief was overwhelming. Thank God. Thank you. When can we do the surgery? We need to move her to a special care unit right away. I can arrange the transfer. You do not understand your position here, Victor said sharply. The door opened, and Victor's lawyer came in carrying a thick, leather-bound folder. He put it on the desk right in front of Jack. I will save my daughter, Victor said, his voice changing to a strong, cold tone. I will give her the best medical care money can buy, but I do not share what is mine. I will not share parenting with a woman from a poor background and a man who is pretending to be her father. You will sign this document. You will give me all parental rights. You will remove yourself completely from Belle's life. If you say no, I will leave this building, get on my private jet, and let her die. Jack stared at the folder. His mind raced, trying to grasp the full cruelty of the demand. You don't really care about her, Jack said quietly, but with quiet anger. You don't want a daughter. You want to own her. You want to erase me because of your own pride. You are treating a sick 9-year-old girl like she is just a business deal. Victor smiled, but it was a cold, heartless smile. Sign the paper, Mr. Collier, or prepare for the worst. Outside the hospital entrance, Morgan was shouting loudly, her face full of fear and pain. You sign it, she screamed, hitting Jack's chest with both fists. You sign that paper right now. He will let her die, Jack. She will lose her life because of this, and you are here fighting about pride. You are being selfish and proud. Give him what he wants. She is my daughter, and I'm telling you to give him what he wants. Jack grabbed both her wrists firmly. He stopped her from acting out and made her look into his eyes. Be quiet and listen to me, Jack said, his voice strong and clear, cutting through her panic. I'm not being proud. I'm trying to keep us safe. Victor Sterling is not a father. He is dangerous. If I give up my rights as her father, we lose all ways to protect her. He will take her from this hospital, lock her up in his big house, and we will never see her again. He doesn't love her, Morgan. For him, she's just something to own. Morgan stopped moving. Tears ran down her face. Then what do? We have no money. We have no power. He controls everything. He controls biology. I control the law, Jack said, letting her wrists go. I am her legal father. He is just a donor who left her for 9 years. I will file an emergency medical order. A judge will make him help with the treatment. I will not give my daughter to a dangerous man. Barbara Trenton sat behind her desk, shaking her head. Jack, I can't help with this. My office deals with family fights and wedding plans. Victor Sterling's lawyers make millions each year. They would overwhelm me with papers before I could even get to court. This is beyond what I can do. Then tell me who can help, Jack said. 1 hour later, Jack sat in a very different office. Elena Rostova was across from him. She was a sharp-looking woman in a neat black suit. She looked serious and ready for a fight. I don't take free cases, Mr. Collier, Elena said with a bitter smile. I was kicked out of corporate law because I refused to follow all the rules. I do hard cases for people who can't win, but I need clients who can pay me. You're a mechanic. You can't pay my fees. The man trying to take my daughter is Victor Sterling, Jack said. Elena stopped. The smile disappeared quickly. Her eyes locked on Jack with clear anger. She leaned forward, resting on her hands. Victor Sterling, she said quietly with hate. 5 years ago, he took over my brother's drug company by force. He stole the patents, buried the company in fake lawsuits, and drove my brother to lose hope. I have waited 5 years for that proud, cruel man to make a mistake. Elena reached into her desk drawer. She took out a regular contract and a pen. She slid them across the desk to Jack. I will be your lawyer, Jack, Elena said, her voice strong and sure. And I will sign this contract for just $1. We're going to bring Victor Sterling to court. We will take away his money and power. Piece by piece, we will break apart his whole empire. Richard Halsey stood by the window in Belle's hospital room. Morgan sat by the bed, holding Belle's hand as she slept. I'm just saying, Morgan, Richard whispered, his voice sharp and bitter. Jack's a mechanic. He's nobody. He's dragging you into a fight with a billionaire. What if Jack loses? What if Victor Sterling gets angry and walks away? Your little girl could be in danger because Jack wants to be tough. You should have let him sign the papers. Jack always messes things up. Stop, Dad. Morgan said softly, tired and sad. Jack is doing what he thinks is right. Richard sneered and turned away. He left the room and walked out to the hospital parking. He went to his old car and reached for the door, but a strong hand grabbed his shoulder and turned him around. Julian stood there, dressed neatly in a clean suit. "Richard Halsey," Julian said gently, but with a clear warning, stepping close to him. "You owe $100,000 to a loan shark named Tommy Sullivan. I know Tommy. He's not someone you want to cross. He will come for you by the end of the month. You don't have much time, Richard." Richard's face went pale. He stepped back toward his car. "Who are you?" "I work for Victor Sterling," Julian said, calm and cold. "Mr. Sterling wants custody of his daughter. Jack Collier is causing problems. We need to damage Jack's reputation. We need someone close to speak against him, to say Jack is dangerous and unstable, that he pressured the adoption and hurt the child. If you testify like that in tomorrow's emergency custody hearing, Mr. Sterling will send $150,000 to an offshore account in your name tonight. Your debt will disappear. Your life will be safe. All you have to do is speak against a man you already dislike." Richard looked at Julian. He thought about the loan shark and his debts. He remembered his pride and his strong dislike for Jack Collier. He did not hesitate. "Tell Victor we have a deal," Richard said. The emergency family courtroom felt like another tool for Victor Sterling's money. Jack sat at the petitioner's table next to Elena Rostova. Jack wore his only suit. His broad shoulders were tight with tension. His eyes were fixed straight ahead. Elena sat very still. Her sharp features showed no feeling as Victor's main lawyer walked back and forth. "Your Honor, we are not here to argue about biology," Victor's lawyer said confidently. His voice sounded like a man who was used to winning important cases. "We are here to talk about the safety of a sick 9-year-old girl. Mr. Collier asked for a legal order, saying my client, Victor Sterling, treats his daughter like an object. But let's look at the truth about Jack Collier. Look at the many women who came and went in that girl's life, a constant change of unstable people bringing chaos and fights. Look also at the attack on my client's group just 2 days ago. Mr. Collier had to be stopped by security when he tried to attack a man attending a charity event." Elena said nothing. She leaned quietly toward Jack and whispered, "Let him speak. The more he attacks you, the more desperate they seem to the judge. But you don't have to believe only me," the lawyer went on, facing the audience. "We call Richard Halsey to the stand. He is the girl's grandfather." Jack's head shot up. He watched Richard walk down the aisle. Richard did not look at Jack. Morgan, sitting at the back, stood quietly. She covered her mouth with her hands in shock as her father put his hand on the Bible and promised to tell the truth. "Mr. Halsey," the lawyer said, "you have lived with Jack Collier's adopted daughter all her life. Tell this court about the man sitting at that table." Richard held the edges of the stand tightly. He looked at Victor Sterling. Victor sat calm and gave a small nod. "Jack Collier is a controlling, dangerous man," Richard said loudly. His voice was strong and angry. "He forced my daughter into the adoption when she was young and weak. He used his money to trap her. For 9 years, I have seen him hurt Morgan emotionally. I have heard him yell at her in front of Belle. I have seen him use that little girl to control our family. When things don't go his way, he breaks things and scares people. He is not stable. If you leave Belle with him during this scary time, his anger and the stress will harm her more than the illness." "You liar!" Jack shouted. He stood up quickly, but Elena grabbed his belt and pulled him back with strong force. "Calm down," Elena whispered sharply in his ear. "Look at the judge. You're only making things worse." The judge slammed his gavel. His face turned red with anger as he stared at Jack. "Mr. Collier, one more outburst and you will be held in contempt and taken to a holding cell," the judge warned. Then he spoke more gently to Victor Sterling. "Based on the grandfather's sworn statement and the police report about the motorcade incident, I find Jack Collier to be a serious emotional and physical risk to the child's well-being. The medical request is denied. Also, I am putting a temporary order in place. Mr. Collier, you are not allowed near Belle Halsey, Victor Sterling, or the hospital within 500 feet until a full custody hearing is held." "You just gave a sick child to a stranger," Jack shouted, slamming his hands on the table. "Bailiff, remove him from my courtroom," the judge commanded. 2 court officers led Jack out through the heavy double doors. Morgan rushed through the doors moments later. Her face was wet with tears and full of anger. She grabbed Jack's jacket tightly. "What did he do?" she cried. "Why did my father lie like that? He just gave Belle to Victor. What is going on, Jack?" "Your father betrayed us," Jack said in a low, serious voice. His eyes were empty as he looked at her hands on his jacket. He saw Victor as a way to get money and traded your daughter's safety for it. You need to go back to the hospital and stay with Belle. Don't leave her side for even a moment. Elena and I will go through everything about your father's life until we find proof. Jack left her standing alone on the sidewalk. An hour later, he paced back and forth in Elena's office. Elena sat at her desk, 3 large computer screens lighting up her focused face. Richard Halsey is in deep trouble, Elena said as she quickly typed. While we were in court, I looked up his credit history in secret. He owes $100,000 to Tommy Sullivan. Sullivan is a dangerous man who works on the South Side. If you don't pay him, bad things happen. Richard was doomed. Then Victor paid him off, Jack said, stopping his pacing. Victor cleared his debt. Even more, Elena said as she hit the enter key. A detailed financial report appeared on the screen. I just found Richard's offshore bank details through a company database my brother made years ago. One day before this hearing, a secret Cayman Islands company sent exactly $150,000 to a new account in Richard's name. Victor didn't just pay his debt. He also gave Richard a $50,000 bonus for lying under oath. Jack walked around the desk and looked down at the shining numbers. The plan behind it all was so cold and clever, it made him feel sick inside. Print this out. We will show the judge. We can prove Richard was paid off. A wire from a shell company in the Cayman Islands is just a guess, Elena said quickly. She looked more closely at the screen. Any new law student could say Richard won the money gambling online. We need to find a pattern. We have to show Richard often takes money to ruin your life. Elena pointed to a part of the list from a closed bank account in the country. Look here. 10 years ago, Richard had a joint account with Morgan. It was for her college fund. He kept taking out a lot of money. And right here, 6 days before your wedding was supposed to happen, Richard made a payment of $5,000 to someone. Jack leaned closer. He read the name on the screen. He felt like the air left his lungs. Ernie Woods, Jack whispered. Who is Ernie Woods? Elena asked, looking at him. He is the man who ruined my life, Jack said. He held the edge of the desk so tightly the wood made a soft sound. 10 years ago, Ernie Woods went to Morgan the morning after my bachelor party and told her I cheated on her. That's why the wedding was canceled. That's why Morgan got very angry and spent time with Victor Sterling. Ernie lied. We proved he lied before, but we never knew why he did it. Now we do, Elena said, her voice sharp. Richard knew you were checking the bank accounts. He knew you would find out he was taking Morgan's college money. So he paid a local troublemaker $5,000 to ruin your wedding and remove you from the picture. Jack didn't use the legal system to find Ernie Woods' old roommate. Instead, he kicked the door of a rundown apartment building off its hinges. The roommate, a tired mechanic named Kyle, backed into his kitchen. He held his hands up in fear as Jack walked in. I don't know where Ernie is, Kyle shouted. He died in California years ago, I swear. I don't care about Ernie, Jack said. His voice grew low and tense. He pushed Kyle against the refrigerator by the collar. I care about the $5,000 Richard Halsey gave him 10 years ago. I have the bank records, Kyle. I know you lived with him. I know you were driving his car. Look me in the eye and tell me exactly what Richard paid him to do, or I'm going to throw you out this third-story window. Okay, Kyle gasped. He tried to pull his hand away from Jack's grip. Richard came to the apartment. I was sitting on the couch. Richard gave Ernie an envelope of money and told him to meet Morgan the next morning. He told Ernie to make up a story about a woman named Courtney. Richard said he needed you gone because you were asking too many questions about Morgan's trust fund. He said if Morgan married you, he'd lose control of the money and could get in big trouble. That's it. That's the whole truth. Jack let go of him. Kyle fell to the hard floor, coughing. Jack left the apartment without looking back. That night, Morgan stood trembling under the cold concrete roof of the hospital parking garage. Jack's truck pulled up by her. He rolled down the window and handed her a thick folder. Because of a court order, he kept the engine running. What is this? Morgan asked, holding the folder tight. That's the last 10 years of your life, Jack said. Look at the bank statements with highlights. Read the paper Elena made Ernie Woods' old roommate sign. Your father didn't just turn against Belle today, Morgan. 10 years ago, he paid Ernie Woods $5,000 to lie and say I cheated on you. He did it because I caught him stealing your college money and he needed to break us up to keep control of your money. Morgan stared at him, her face going blank. She opened the folder. She read the bank transfers. She read the paper. She looked at the date on the check. It was the day before her bridal party. My father, Morgan whispered. The words stuck in her throat. My father paid Ernie to lie. If he hadn't, I wouldn't have gotten so upset. I wouldn't have made mistakes. Your father planned to destroy our family so he could keep taking from you, Jack said. He wasn't trying to comfort her. His words were cold and hard. And today, he made a deal to solve a problem by using your daughter. You need to go back inside that hospital, Morgan, look at the man who hurt your family, and decide what kind of mother you want to be. Jack closed his window and drove away. Morgan walked into the hospital cafeteria. Richard sat alone at a corner table, eating a sandwich with a cup of coffee. Morgan slammed the folder down on his plate. Richard jumped. He brushed crumbs from his shirt. "Why are you doing this, Morgan?" he asked. "I know," Morgan said, her voice low and empty. Not a shout, but a quiet, strong sound. "I know about the $150,000 Victor sent you. And I know about the $5,000 you gave Ernie Woods 10 years ago. I know you took my college money. I know you ruined my wedding to hide it. I know every painful, awful thing that has happened to me in the last 10 years is your fault. You are a terrible person. You ruined my life just to steal money. And now you gave your own granddaughter away to someone you don't even know to save yourself." Richard looked at the open folder. His face lost color, but he stayed proud and did not back down. He pushed his chair back and stood up. He leaned over the table. "You want to know the truth?" Richard growled. His voice was full of anger and excuses. "Jack Collier was never good enough for you. He was just a mechanic who thought he could tell me how to use my family's money. I kept him away from you. And Victor Sterling? Victor is a billionaire, Morgan. Jack was going to lose that fight for custody anyway. Why shouldn't I fix my own problems while I could? Belle will live in a big house. She will have the best care in the world. I did this for you. I did this for our family, and you are too blind and emotional to see it." Morgan did not slap him. She did not yell. A soft, broken sound came from her mouth, a sound full of pain and deep sadness. The truth crushed her mind. Her whole life had been a lie. She turned quickly and ran. She took the emergency stairs, her boots pounding on the hard steps as she ran up. Her chest felt tight. She could hardly breathe. She burst through the heavy doors at the top and ran out onto the hospital roof. She ran straight to the low concrete wall. She wanted the pain to end. She wanted the heavy guilt from the last 10 years to disappear. She put her hands on the wall and got ready to climb over. Then two strong arms grabbed her from behind and pulled her back hard. Jack fell onto the gravel, pulling Morgan down with him. Morgan struggled like an animal. She screamed. She pushed him away, tried to break free. "Let me go!" Morgan shouted, her voice breaking. "I ruined everything! I ruined your life! I gave my child to someone bad! Let me jump, Jack! Just let me go!" "Stop it!" Jack shouted. He held her arms tight. He rolled her over so she had to look at his face. "Stop this right now! You can't give up like this! You don't get to leave me here to handle it alone! I don't care what happened 10 years ago!" "I don't care about your father. Belle is lying in a bed 3 floors below. She is freezing. She needs her mother." Morgan sank against Jack's chest. She cried hard. Her fingers dug into his coat. Jack held her on the roof. His jaw was tight. He let her fall apart. After a few minutes, her loud crying turned into short, shaky breaths. Morgan pulled her head back and looked at Jack. The sadness in her eyes was gone. Now she looked cold and angry, like she had no feeling left. "Victor wants a perfect family picture for the judge," Morgan said quietly. "He wants to look like a loving father who saved me from a bad past. I'm going to give him that, Jack. I will play his game. But when I get into that house, I will tear him down from the inside." The hospital lobby was crowded. Victor Sterling stood near the front desk. Julian and his lawyers were by his side. They were finishing the papers to take Belle away. Reporters clicked pictures of the rich man coming to save his sick daughter. Jack stood 10 feet away, following the rules. His face showed deep anger and loss. The elevator doors opened. Morgan came out pushing Belle in a wheelchair. Morgan looked different. Her hair was neat, she had a little makeup, and her sweater was clean. She looked like someone who had found hope. As she crossed the lobby, Jack stepped forward. "Morgan, don't do this. Don't take her with him." Morgan stopped the wheelchair. She faced Jack with cameras all around, her face twisted with angry, mean words. "Stay away from us, Jack," she shouted, her voice loud against the walls. "I'm tired of your lies. You failed. You couldn't care for us. You couldn't keep her safe. You are ready to let my daughter suffer just to save your weak pride. Victor is the real man. Victor will save her. You mean nothing to us now. Go back to your empty trailer and leave us alone." Jack winced, but stayed calm. He looked down. His shoulders fell with sadness. He turned and walked out through the glass doors. Victor smiled, a real, happy smile. He walked to Morgan and gently put his hand on her shoulder. "You made the right choice, Morgan. I will handle everything now. Julian, get them to the car." 2 hours later, the tall iron gates of the Sterling estate closed behind the big armored SUV. Morgan looked out the dark window at the huge, strong-looking house. Guards walked around the edges. Cameras watched every move of their car. As Morgan stepped out of the SUV, she bent down to fix the heel of her boot. Hidden under her shoe was a prepaid burner phone. Elena had bought it earlier that day. Morgan stood up and looked at the cold stone walls of the place she now called her prison. She was completely cut off from the outside world. She was the hidden threat inside. Belle was kept in a fancy, clean medical room on the second floor of the mansion. The walls were light cream. A group of modern medical machines quietly buzzed in the corner. Victor acted like a caring father, but only for 5 minutes each day. He came into the room, stood at the end of Belle's bed, and asked the nurses about her health. Morgan watched him carefully. Victor never touched Belle. He never held her hand. He never did anything gentle. He looked at the 9-year-old girl like she was just an object. At 2 a.m., the mansion was very quiet. Morgan quietly left the medical room, wearing no shoes. She moved softly over the carpets. She had spent the last 3 days memorizing how the security cameras moved. She crept toward Victor's private study. The heavy wooden door was barely open. Morgan pressed her back against the wall and looked through the small gap of light. Victor sat behind his desk. He tried to pour a glass of water, but his right hand shook so much that water spilled over his knuckles. He cursed softly and put the pitcher down hard. He swallowed a handful of unmarked pills. A man in a white coat stood on the other side of the desk, looking at Victor without any feeling. "The shaking is getting worse," the doctor said. His voice showed no care at all. "The damage to your nervous system is happening faster than I thought. The medicine isn't working. If we don't do the treatment by the end of the week, you'll lose the use of your hands and feet." "Then we start with the girl tomorrow," Victor growled. He held his shaking right hand with his left to try to stop it. "You need to understand what you're asking," the doctor said. His hands were flat on the desk. "A normal bone marrow test will help with her anemia, but her marrow alone won't fix your condition. To stop your genetic damage, I have to take the cleanest and purest stem cells right from her nervous system. I have to carefully take fluid from the bottom of her spine while she's awake. Victor, her body is already very weak from her illness. If I do this large spinal procedure, there's a very high chance she will have serious nerve damage. We will make her unable to move from the neck down. She might even die from the shock," Julian said quietly. Victor's voice was cold and firm. "I'm paying you $40 million to make sure she lives." He looked ready to make a hard choice. "But if the choice is between her walking and me being helpless for the rest of my life, you take what I need. Do you understand? I don't care if she has to stay on a machine to breathe. You take what I need to stay alive." Morgan covered her mouth with her hand, her stomach twisting. She moved away from the door, her heart pounding like a trapped bird. She locked herself inside the small bathroom connected to Belle's room. Shaking badly, she pulled out her hidden phone from her boot. Her fingers trembled as she typed, "Jack. Victor is sick. Genetic nerve disease. Marrow not enough. They plan to operate on her spine and take stem cells. Doctor said it could leave her paralyzed or cause her death. Surgery is tomorrow." She sent the message. 10 miles away, in Elena's office, Jack stared at the screen with the message. His ears rang as he pushed the phone toward Elena. When she read it, her face turned pale. "He's not going through legal steps," Elena breathed. "No hospital will allow an unproven spine operation on a sick child just to save a rich man. They're doing it in a hidden clinic below that mansion. Jack, if they operate like that now, she won't survive." Back at the mansion, Morgan erased the message. She put the phone away and reached for the door handle. Before she could touch it, the door slammed open. Julian stood there, calm but dangerous. He came into the bathroom and grabbed Morgan's throat, pushing her against the wall. Her breath left her in a rush. "You are very quiet, Morgan," Julian said softly, pressing his thumb to her throat. "You walk the halls at night. You stand near doors you shouldn't. Mr. Sterling thinks you're just a worried mother, but I think you're a spy. Tell me what you were doing here, or I'll say you fell and hurt yourself." Morgan looked into Julian's cold eyes. She knew she couldn't fight. She couldn't win like this. She would have to use what he didn't expect. She forced herself to cry. She twisted her face into a look of sad, greedy desperation. She weakly grabbed Julian's wrist. She gasped for air. "I was looking for the pills," Morgan said, her voice shaky and upset. Julian loosened his hold on her throat just a little. "What pills?" he asked. "Victor's pills," Morgan cried. Tears ran down her cheeks. She acted like the poor woman they thought she was. I saw him taking them in his study. He's sick, isn't he? He's really sick. I was just trying to find out how much time he has left. Look, Jack is broke. I have nothing. If Victor dies, I need to know if he put Belle in the will. I just wanted to find the medical files to see if he's going to leave us money. Please, I'm just trying to make a future for my kid. I just want to know we get money when he dies. Julian looked at her closely. He searched her eyes for lies. He saw a woman crying over a billionaire's will. He saw a woman who cared only about money and safety, with no real understanding of the serious medical risks. Julian's face showed disgust. He let go of her neck. She slid down the tiled wall to sit on the floor. You greedy, weak woman, Julian said with anger. He wiped his hand on his jacket, like touching her made him dirty. Victor will live longer than you by many years. Stay in your room. If I see you walking around the house at night again, there will be trouble. Julian left the bathroom. Morgan sat on the floor. She rubbed her sore throat. She took deep, quick breaths. She had bought them some time. At 8 a.m. the next day, Elena and Jack stood before the family court judge. Elena slammed a paper folder onto the judge's desk. Your Honor, we have direct and clear proof from someone inside the Sterling estate. Victor Sterling plans to do a dangerous and unapproved medical procedure on the child, Belle, Elena said loudly, her voice filling the quiet room. This surgery is risky, not approved by doctors, and could cause Belle to lose the use of her body or worse. We ask for the police to act right away and to stop Victor from making medical decisions for Belle. The judge barely looked at the papers. He looked at Victor's lawyer, who seemed very bored. Counselor, the judge said with a tired sigh, rubbing his forehead, this is just an anonymous message. That is hearsay. Victor Sterling is a respected man here. He works with the best doctors. I will not send police to his home on the word of a worried mother already judged unstable. The medical control stays with Victor. This hearing is over. The judge hit his gavel hard. Jack felt like the ground disappeared beneath him. They left the courthouse without saying a word. When they reached the parking lot, Elena stopped. She looked at Jack. The sharp, smooth lawyer was gone. Instead, there was a woman who just realized the law wasn't fair. It was just a story to keep people like them down. We lost, Elena said. Her voice was tired and honest. The judge is on their side. The system is on their side. Legally, Victor can do whatever he wants to her tomorrow morning. We have nothing to stop him. No police help, nothing. Jack opened his truck door. He reached inside the glove box and took out a heavy black gun. He pulled the slide back. It clicked loudly as it locked into place. Then he hid the gun in his waistband. I don't care about the law anymore, Elena, Jack said. His eyes were fierce, filled with hard anger. I'm going to get my daughter, and if anyone tries to stop me, I will do whatever it takes. Elena didn't move back or call the police. She stared at the gun and then looked straight into Jack's empty eyes. She came around her desk and stood in front of him. You need to know something, Elena said in a quiet voice. If you bring a gun onto Victor Sterling's property, his guards will shoot you right away. They will say you were a dangerous ex-husband trying to break in. The police will believe them. The news will believe them. The law will protect them. You will die there, and Victor will still keep your daughter. Jack didn't blink. Then I won't give them a reason. I won't try to go through the front. I'll find another way in. I'll get to Belle, take her, and leave. I need Sebastian to cut the power, and I need you to cover for me. Are you with me, or am I doing this alone? Elena looked at him, thinking of her brother and the judge who laughed in her face. I've waited 5 years to see Victor Sterling lose, she said quietly, full of hate. I'm with you. Let's burn his house down. A loud knock broke the quiet in the office. Jack turned quickly. His hand moved to the gun at his side. He walked to the heavy wooden door and opened it. Richard Halsey stood outside. Morgan's father looked like he had been through a terrible fight. His lip was badly cut. His left eye was swollen shut. His nice suit jacket was torn and wet with rain and blood. He leaned heavily against the doorframe, holding his ribs with a shaking hand. You weak old man, Jack said angrily. He did not offer his hand. He looked at Richard with clear hate. Victor got what he wanted from you. You stood there and betrayed your own family to a cruel man. You are useless to him now. Why are you here? Tommy Sullivan found me, Richard said, coughing and spitting blood onto the shiny floor. Victor did not send the money to my account as he promised. He lied. He used my testimony to get control, then left me to die. Sullivan's men trapped me in the parking garage an hour ago. They hurt me badly. And you came here expecting what? Jack stepped closer, towering over Richard. Did you want me to feel sorry? Did you think I would protect you? You are nothing but a loser. You thought some rich guy would see a broken gambler as a partner? You ruined Morgan's life to hide your own lies. You destroyed my wedding. You did the worst to Belle for money that wasn't even real. You deserve whatever happens to you. I know, Richard gasped. He pushed himself off the door frame and staggered into the office. I am finished. Sullivan gave me one day to find the money or I'm dead. But I didn't come for help. I came because I know you will try to stop Belle tonight. And I know you might die doing it. Victor has 20 guards watching the place. But I have this. Richard pulled a crumpled, blood-stained paper from his torn pocket. He slammed it on Elena's desk. When Victor's lawyers were getting me ready for court yesterday, they left me alone in their room, Richard said, holding on to the desk to stay standing. I took the security plans for the house. I know where the cameras don't watch. I know when the guards change shifts. Let me help you get inside. Jack pulled his gun from his side. He held the cold metal against Richard's forehead. Give me one good reason not to end this right now, Jack whispered. Richard's finger tightened on the trigger. Jack looked up. The proud, harsh look Richard usually had was completely gone. Because I messed everything up, Richard said, his voice breaking. I messed up Morgan's life. I messed up your life. Please let me do one good thing before I die, Jack. Let me help you get my girls back. Jack looked into Richard's eyes. Slowly, he lowered the gun. You go in first, Jack said. The blueprints were spread out on Elena's desk. Sebastian's voice came through the secure speakerphone. Victor's security system uses a closed fiber optic network, Sebastian explained quickly. I can't hack it from my place. The system is completely cut off from outside attacks. But if you look at the north wall on the blueprint, you'll see a big outside junction box. If someone can get to that box and plug in a small signal device, I can trick the camera feeds from here. I can blind the outside cameras for exactly 12 minutes during the midnight guard change. 12 minutes, Jack repeated. He traced the path on the paper with his finger. We have 12 minutes to cross 200 yards of open grass, get through the side door, find Belle's medical room, and get her back outside before the system turns back on. It's going to get worse, Elena said. She stood by the window watching the heavy rain pour down. A big storm has stopped right over the city. The FAA has grounded all private planes. Victor's helicopter can't fly. Jack looked up from the desk. What does that mean for us? It means Victor can't move Belle to that secret clinic he wanted to use for the surgery, Elena said. He's stuck inside the house. The surgery has to happen there. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. It was a message from the burner phone Morgan had hidden inside the mansion. They are moving her now. Victor can't wait for the storm to end. They're taking her to an underground clinic below the house. The surgery happens tonight. Jack, you have 1 hour, or it's too late. Jack stared at the glowing screen. The hard truth hit him all at once. He put the phone away and turned to Richard. Victor is moving her underground, Jack said sharply. Do these blueprints show the basement? Yes, Richard said, coughing weakly. He pointed at the lower part of the blueprint, his hand shaking. There's a secure elevator at the end of the East Wing Medical Hall. It goes straight down into an old bunker Victor changed into a lab. Elena, you are driving the getaway car, Jack said. You park exactly half a mile down the access road and keep the engine running. Sebastian, you connect with my earpiece and guide me through the junction box bypass. Richard, you will use the key card you took from Victor's lawyers to open the East Wing door. Jack, if they catch you inside, they won't hesitate, Elena warned. If they catch me, they'll regret it, Jack replied. Rain poured hard and cold, making it hard to see. The Sterling estate stood like a huge, strong fortress against the dark sky. Jack and Richard stayed low in the thick mud just outside the trees. Jack wore a black jacket and held his gun firmly. Richard knelt next to him, shaking and holding his side from an earlier injury. Sebastian, we're near the north wall, Jack whispered into his earpiece. I have your signal, Sebastian's voice came back. I'm cutting the camera feeds now. The guards are changing shifts at the main gate. You've got exactly 12 minutes of empty footage. Move now. Jack and Richard slipped from the trees. They ran across the wet lawn. The rain hid their footsteps completely. Soon, they reached the side door of the East Wing. Richard pulled out the stolen key card. His hands trembled so much he nearly dropped it. He swiped the card on the scanner. The lock clicked open. The light turned green. They slipped inside. The mansion was very quiet, cut off from the storm outside. The only sound was the soft humming of the air conditioning. Jack kept his gun ready as they moved fast down the long, velvet-lined halls, staying close to the walls and shadows. "The elevator to the underground clinic is at the end of this hall," Richard whispered, pointing to a pair of heavy wooden doors. Jack pressed through the doors. They stepped into a bright, clean, white hallway. Standing at the far end, blocking the elevator doors, was Julian, Victor's head of security. He didn't look surprised. He stood still, hands folded calmly behind his back. His suit was neat and dry despite the storm. "I told Victor you would break, Richard," Julian said smoothly. His voice echoed down the empty hall, calm and cold. "I told him you were weak. You are exactly what I thought. You're nothing but a selfish, useless leech. You couldn't face the pressure from your debts, and you couldn't handle the guilt you made for yourself. You brought Jack Collier right to our door." Julian unclasped his hands. He quickly pulled a small black handgun from his shoulder holster. "Jack, run!" Richard shouted. The old man pushed his broken body forward, trying to block the way. Julian fired one shot. The quiet gun made a soft mechanical sound. Richard fell down onto the shiny white floor. A dark stain spread across his chest. Jack shouted. He did not raise his gun. Instead, he ran forward in 3 big steps and pushed Julian with all his strength. Julian was a trained fighter. He rolled backward using Jack's force to move back. As they hit the floor, Julian hit Jack's ribs hard with his knee. Jack groaned, but didn't stop. He grabbed Julian's wrist with both hands and twisted it. There was a sharp crack. The gun fell and slid across the smooth floor. Julian stayed calm. He hit Jack's face hard with his elbow. Jack's head moved back quickly. Blood came from Jack's nose. Julian reached behind his back and pulled out a short, jagged knife. He lunged up with it. Jack stepped to the side, but the knife still caught his jacket. The blade cut deep into Jack's left shoulder, hurting him badly. Strong feelings blocked out the pain. Jack grabbed Julian's hand that held the knife. He ignored the sharp blade cutting his palm. Then Jack hit Julian's nose hard with his forehead. There was a sharp sound. Julian stepped back, his eyes blurred from the hit. Jack grabbed Julian's jacket collar and slammed his face against the hard elevator door frame. Julian dropped to the floor, unconscious. Jack stood over him, breathing hard. Blood from his shoulder dripped onto the white floor. He looked back. Richard was slumped against the wall, barely breathing. The bullet had seriously hurt him. He was in bad trouble. Jack went over and knelt beside Richard. "I got you inside," Richard said quietly. He coughed thick blood onto his chin. Reaching weakly into his torn jacket pocket, he pulled out a large silver key card. He pressed it into Jack's injured hand. "You did," Jack said softly. "You did. Tell Morgan I'm sorry," Richard said, his eyes losing focus. "I took her money. I messed up the wedding, but I brought you here today. Save my girls, Jack." Richard's eyes rolled back. His head dropped to the side. He was gone. Jack looked at the man who caused so much pain in his life. The man who had given up his own life to try to fix it. Jack reached out and gently closed Richard's eyes. Then he stood up and wiped his face with the sleeve of his shirt. He walked to the elevator and swiped a silver card. The heavy doors slid open. The elevator went down deep under the big house. The doors opened with a hiss. Inside was a huge, bright room that looked like a hospital operating room. Everything was shiny and clean, but cold. There were metal tables, many machines with blinking lights, and big oxygen tanks along the white walls. On the left side of the room, Victor Sterling lay flat on a table, ready for surgery. A clear tube was in his arm. On the right side, Belle was asleep on her stomach. Her back shone under the strong lights. A private doctor stood over her, holding a very large needle. "Stop right there," Jack said, stepping out of the elevator. He raised his hand and pointed a gun at the doctor's forehead. The doctor froze and dropped the needle on a metal tray with a loud clang. He put his hands up. Victor did not move. He slowly turned his head on the pillow to look at Jack. "You are a very stubborn and annoying man, Mr. Collier," Victor said calmly. His voice was full of pride and a bit of disrespect. "But you are too late. The girl is deeply asleep and cannot be moved safely. If you stop this surgery now, her condition will get worse. She will pass away in a week. You do not have what it takes to save her. You need me." "I don't need you," a voice growled from the back of the room. Morgan stepped out from another area. Her eyes looked wild. She walked straight to Victor's table. She pressed a sharp blade carefully but firmly on Victor's neck. Victor's eyes got wide with shock. "Morgan, what are you doing?" "I am taking my daughter home," Morgan said quietly. The blade cut just enough to show a thin line of blood. You're just a dead man in a fancy suit. You thought your money could fix my daughter's problems? You thought you could use her like an experiment just because you have money? You will call off your guards and let us leave now, or I will make sure you don't get out of here. Suddenly, the heavy doors on the observation deck above the room burst open. 6 guards carrying guns appeared on the metal balcony. They aimed their weapons down at the room below. "Put down your weapons now!" the lead guard shouted through the speaker. Jack didn't listen. He kept his pistol aimed at the scared doctor. Slowly, Jack moved toward Belle's table. Ignoring the sharp pain in his shoulder, he pulled the tube out of Belle's arm. He picked up her small, unconscious body and wrapped her tightly in a thin hospital blanket. "Morgan, tell your men to lower their weapons," Jack said to Victor. Morgan pressed the small knife deeper against Victor's neck. "Tell them to open the main doors at the end of the hall, or I will use this knife right now. Give the order." Victor looked at her, saw the seriousness in her eyes, and raised his shaking hand toward the balcony. "Stand down. Open the main doors." The heavy steel doors at the far end of the room made a loud sound as they started to slide open. They showed a dark hallway leading to the parking garage outside. Jack stepped back, holding Belle close. Morgan walked back with him, keeping the knife pressed against Victor's neck. She pulled the billionaire out of his chair and used him as a shield from the rifles above. They reached the open doors, but Victor suddenly hit a hidden button on the wall with his injured hand. A loud alarm sounded. The steel doors quickly started to close again. Only a small gap was left between the metal. Morgan looked at the closing doors, then at Jack, and finally at the little girl in his arms. "Morgan, come on!" Jack shouted, reaching out his hand to her. But Morgan did not move toward the door. She put her hands firmly on Jack's chest and pushed him backward. Jack and Belle slipped through the narrow opening just before the heavy doors slammed shut behind them. The doors closed with a loud, heavy sound. Jack fell hard onto the concrete floor of the outside hallway, covering Belle's body with his own. He quickly got to his knees and slammed his fists against the thick metal doors, which would not open. "Morgan!" Jack shouted. "Open the door! Morgan!" Inside the locked surgery room, Morgan stood alone. Victor quickly stepped back, holding his injured neck. 6 guards on the balcony aimed their rifles at her chest. "Shoot her!" Victor said sharply. Morgan did not fight. She did not lower the scalpel. She did not ask for mercy. She looked up at the security camera on the ceiling, knowing Jack would see what happened. "I love you, Belle," Morgan whispered. Then she turned and ran straight toward the big oxygen tanks beside the wall. "Fire!" Victor yelled, realizing what she was about to do. The guards fired. Bullets hit the floor and walls near Morgan's feet. She lunged forward and sliced the valve on the main oxygen tank with the sharp scalpel. The gas burst out loudly with a strong hiss. A bullet hit the metal tank, sparking a huge explosion. The blast completely destroyed the surgery room. It broke through the metal balcony and shook the walls of the underground building. In the hallway, Jack was pushed backward by the strong blast. The steel doors bent outward and glowed red from the heat. The whole house shook. The alarms screamed loudly in the night. Jack lay on the floor, holding Belle close to protect her from falling dust. He closed his eyes and cried. He knew Morgan was gone. About 20 minutes later, the FBI arrived at the Sterling estate. Elena had sent a signal the moment she lost contact with Jack. This signal sent all the secret files about Victor's illegal medical work to the authorities and the news. Victor Sterling survived the explosion. The heavy metal surgery tables had kept him safe from the worst of the blast. But when emergency workers pulled him from the rubble, he had serious injuries over much of his body. He lay tied to a stretcher in the back of an ambulance on his own damaged lawn. Elena walked straight past the police tape and stood over him. "Look at me, Victor," Elena said. Her voice held no kindness. She looked down at the burned face of the rich man. "I am the sister of the man you made lose hope 5 years ago. I am the lawyer who just took down your entire business. You will survive these burns, and when you recover, you will spend the rest of your life in a special medical prison. You will be stuck in a cell, unable to move because of your own illness, and you will fade away." Morgan Halsey's body was never fully found after the fire in the basement. The news called her a hero. She was the mother who revealed a rich man's secret to save her child. Belle woke up 2 days later in a modern, real children's hospital. Elena's well-known legal fight against Victor's illegal underground work caught the attention of doctors around the world. The news was everywhere. Within 1 week, a suitable bone marrow donor was found in Germany. The surgery was a total success. 5 years later, the afternoon sun shone over the smooth green hills of Benhurst Cemetery. Jack stood quietly on the grass. He wore a simple black suit that fit well. A deep scar on his left shoulder from a past injury pulled slightly under the cloth. Elena stood beside him, dressed in a neat black dress and wearing a silver wedding ring. She held Jack's hand firmly and calmly. A 14-year-old Belle stood in front of them. She was tall, full of life, and very healthy. Her blonde hair moved softly in the gentle breeze. She knelt on the soft grass. She pulled out an old, worn pink bunny from her bag. It was the same stuffed animal Jack had given Morgan in the hospital when Belle was born. Belle carefully placed the toy on the smooth marble headstone. Jack looked down at the stone. It did not show Morgan's faults. It did not tell of her struggles. It simply said, Morgan Halsey, a mother who gave everything. Belle stood and wiped a quiet tear from her cheek. She looked at Jack. "Are you ready to go home, kiddo?" Jack asked, his voice full of feeling. "Yes, Dad," Belle said, giving him a small, brave smile. "I'm ready." Jack squeezed her hand tightly. He looked at Elena, then back at his daughter. They turned away from the grave and walked forward into the bright sunshine, leaving the dark past behind them forever. The warm sunlight that shone over Benhurst Cemetery did not stay for long. 3 days after Jack, Elena, and Belle left Morgan's grave, the calm they had worked hard to protect was broken. Elena sat behind a large glass desk in her law office. She wore a neat red blouse. Her dark hair was tied back tightly in a perfect braid. Her sharp eyes were fixed on a small, plain cardboard box sitting right in the middle of her desk. She did not touch the box. She just looked at it. Suddenly, the big wooden doors of her office opened. Jack came in. He still wore his greasy mechanic's coveralls, and his big, rough hands were cleaning themselves with a red rag. The thick scar on his shoulder showed under the fabric as he moved. He stopped in the middle of the room. First, he looked at Elena's face. Then, he looked at the box. "What is that?" Jack asked quietly, but his voice showed he was worried. "It arrived about 20 minutes ago with a private delivery," Elena said, her voice very calm. "There is no name or address on it, no tracking number. Open it." Jack dropped the rag on the floor. He walked over to the desk and took a small knife from his belt. He carefully cut the tape and opened the box flaps. At the bottom lay a black, burnt piece of fabric, damaged and melted. On top of it was a clean, shiny lighter with special engravings. It was the exact same lighter Morgan had taken from Victor Sterling's hotel room 10 years ago. The lighter that had started the whole conflict. "Victor is in a high-security hospital ward," Jack said, his jaw tight. "He is completely unable to move. He is very sick. He cannot send packages." Before Elena could say anything, her sleek black office phone rang. It was a private, unlisted number. Elena touched the button to answer on speakerphone. "Elena Rostova," she said clearly. "You stole my inheritance," a smooth, confident voice answered. "You destroyed my mentor's business," the voice continued. "You froze the secret accounts. You took a huge biotech fortune and gave it to the government just to settle your own grudge." "Who are you?" Jack asked, leaning over the desk so his large frame cast a shadow over the phone. "My name is Silas Vance," the voice said softly. "I was Victor Sterling's chief operating officer. I was his student. And most important, Jack, I legally control the rights to your daughter's genetic materials if anything happens. Victor was very smart, but also very careful. He never trusted just one person or one plan. Before you destroyed his lab and caused harm to his private medical team, Victor made a backup plan. He signed over the rights to his cure straight to me." Elena laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the glass desk. "Listen to me, you proud, foolish little rich kid," Elena said quietly but sharply, like a weapon. "I looked over every page of Victor Sterling's company plans. I broke apart his holding companies. I canceled his medical permissions when I found out he was running a secret illegal clinic under his house. There is no backup plan that beats federal law. No legal trick you can use here. You're sitting in an empty office holding a paper that means nothing. If you ever bother my family again, I will find where you are online, freeze any hidden money you have left, and I will make sure you end up in a federal prison for helping with serious crimes. The law depends on how you see it, Elena," Silas said calmly, not bothered at all. Victor's original permission was never truly ended by the family court. It was only paused while they looked into things. I have 30 top lawyers working now to get back my legal right to take bone marrow from Belle. The cure for Victor's sickness is still inside your little girl's bones. That gene code is worth billions to private drug companies. I will not let a disbarred lawyer and a greasy mechanic stop me from my rightful fortune. Julian will be with you soon. The line went dead. Jack stood very still. He looked down at the burnt cloth in the box. He knew the special fabric at once. It was the uniform worn by Victor's guards. Julian, Jack whispered, feeling cold all over. Julian was in the underground tunnel when the blast happened. The police said they never found him. He lived, Elena said, her eyes sharp and hard like a hunter's. He lived, and Silas bought his loyalty. Jack, you need to go back to the shop. Lock up the house. We are going back to fight. Jack's car repair shop was completely empty. The lifts were down. The heavy steel doors were closed. Jack stood in the middle of the concrete floor. He was not fixing a car. He stood close to a big metal toolbox, his right hand resting just near a heavy steel tire iron. He did not wait long. The side door to the garage was pushed open with force. Julian stepped inside. Julian didn't look like the smooth, skilled man who had hurt Richard Halsey 5 years ago. The left side of his face was badly scarred from burns. His left eye was pulled down by the damaged skin. He wore a heavy leather jacket to hide his burned arms. In his hand, he held a quiet gun pointed right at Jack's chest. "You look exactly the same, Jack," Julian said in a rough, tired voice. His throat was still hurt from the fire in Morgan's explosion. 5 years of acting like everything's okay. 5 years of pretending you won. You don't know how hard it was for me to crawl out of that burning basement. You don't know how much I've suffered every day while you took your daughter to the park and lived your perfect little life. Jack didn't raise his hands. He wasn't scared. He stood calm, looking at Julian with a mix of boredom and open disgust. "You think your burned face makes you scary?" Jack said in a low, direct voice. "It doesn't. It makes you look like a sad reminder of your own failure. You were supposed to be the best, the most dangerous person. But 5 years ago, I walked into your so-called safe place, I hurt you bad, and I left you alone while everything you built was destroyed." Julian's hand shook a little. The gun moved in his grip. His face turned red with anger. "I'm going to hurt you so badly you won't move," Julian whispered, stepping closer. "Then I will go to your house. I will take Belle and give her to Silas. I will watch them take control of her, and I'll get paid for it." Jack laughed out loud. His laugh echoed through the large garage. "You're so sad," Jack said, shaking his head. He looked at Julian like he was a lost, foolish boy. "You're just a helper. You worked for Victor Sterling, and now that Victor is stuck somewhere far away, you found another person to do your work. You don't think for yourself. Silas Vance is up in his fancy home drinking and relaxing, while he sends you here to do his dirty work because he knows you don't matter. If I ended you right now, Silas wouldn't even come to your funeral. He'd just hire some weak mercenary to replace you." "Shut up!" Julian shouted. He raised the pistol, his finger pressing hard on the trigger. "Go ahead, Julian," Jack said, his voice low and cold. He took a slow step closer to the gun. "Pull that trigger now. But you better hit my head right, because if you miss or just graze me, I'll use this tire iron to break your kneecaps. Then I'll drag you, crying and hurt, all the way to Silas Vance's office and throw you on his desk. Either shoot me or leave my shop." Julian looked into Jack's eyes. He searched for any sign of fear. He found none. Instead, he saw a man who had already faced death years ago, a man ready to do anything for his child. Julian's jaw shook. Slowly, painfully, he lowered the pistol and stepped back toward the open door. "This isn't over," Julian said quietly. "Silas has the paperwork. The law will take her." "Tell Silas I'm coming for him," Jack said. Elena walked back and forth in her living room. The big windows showed a quiet street outside. Belle was safe locked in her bedroom, unaware of the danger. Jack sat heavily on the leather couch, holding a glass of bourbon. His hands were tight and pale. "I went through the federal court records," Elena said, her eyes wide with worry and quick thinking. She stopped and looked at Jack. "Silas wasn't lying. He filed an urgent request in the federal court this morning. He's using a hidden corporate rule from Sterling Biotech to say that Belle's bone marrow is company property. Because Victor paid for her first treatments years ago before the accident, Silas claims the company owns rights to her special genetic makeup." "That's crazy," Jack said, slamming his glass onto the table. "You can't legally claim a child's bone marrow. You can't own a person because you paid the bills. Slavery is illegal. That's what the 13th Amendment is for." "Corporate law doesn't care about people, Jack," Elena said sharply. It cares about contracts and managing assets. Silas isn't trying to win custody forever. He just wants to create enough confusion to get a temporary court order against us. If a dishonest appeals judge approves that order, Silas will have the legal right to take Belle to a medical center for a simple procedure. He only needs to keep her in a chair for about 30 minutes to collect some spinal fluid. Once he has what he wants, he won't care what happens to her afterward. Even if the order is canceled a week later, the harm will already be done. Jack stood up from the sofa. His strong presence filled the room. He went to Elena and placed his hands firmly on her shoulders. 5 years ago, we tried to follow the rules, Jack said. His voice was calm but full of clear determination. 5 years ago, we sat in a courtroom and watched a judge give my daughter to a cruel man because he had more money and better lawyers. I will not let that happen again. I won't wait for a court paper to decide if my daughter lives or dies. Where is Silas Vance? He works out of a fake company's office in the financial district, Elena replied. She looked up at Jack. Her eyes showed the same sharp anger. He is on the top floor of the Genesis building. He thinks his money keeps him safe. He thinks his lawyers will save him. He thinks he can hide behind his fancy desk while someone else does the dirty work. Then we will show him what it means to lose power, Jack said. No, Elena said. She moved away from Jack's hands and opened her briefcase. She took out a thick stack of financial papers. If you go into that building and try to fight him, he wins. He calls the police, you get in trouble, and he gets Belle while you are in trouble. We don't fight Silas with fists. We fight by taking away what he actually cares about. We take his power. Silas Vance walked down the clean marble hallway of the federal courthouse. He wore a very expensive suit and carried a fine leather briefcase. He moved with the confidence of a man who thought he could buy anything he wanted. 2 high-paid lawyers walked beside him, talking quietly about the upcoming order. The judge is already leaning in our favor, one lawyer said quietly, adjusting his glasses. As long as we say the procedure is a normal medical test needed to check a patent, he will sign the order. We will have the girl by tonight. Good, Silas said with a thin, cold smile. Victor was too emotional. He made it about family. I'm keeping it business only. It's cleaner that way. No feelings involved. Is it? A sharp voice asked, suddenly. Silas stopped and looked up. Elena Rostova stood right in the middle of the hallway, blocking his way completely. She wore a sharp dark gray suit. She did not look like a scared mother. She looked like someone ready to deliver justice. Jack stood silently a few steps behind her. His arms were crossed tightly. His eyes stared at Silas with a fierce, steady gaze. Elena Rostova, Silas said with a sneer. He quickly changed his expression and gave a slow, mocking nod. The failed corporate outcast trying to save the trailer park. You are wasting your time. The court is already reviewing the case. You cannot stop it. Go home and pack your daughter's things. I am not here to stop the court order, Silas, Elena said. She took a slow step forward. Her voice was very calm and echoed against the clean marble walls. I am here to tell you that you do not have the money to pay your fees. I am here to tell you that your whole corporate world is gone. Silas laughed and rolled his eyes. You are dreaming. Sterling Biotech's assets are kept safe in secret trusts. You can't touch them. They were, Elena said quietly. She spoke clearly, like she was giving a powerful speech. But Silas, you are not as smart as Victor Sterling was. Victor built an empire. You only got the leftovers. When you filed your claim this morning, saying your company owned Belle's genetic sequence, you linked your company to the old canceled patents of Sterling Biotech. You made a clear financial link. The moment you did that, I was able to get the legal power to freeze your assets based on Victor's past crimes. Silas's confident smile faded. For a moment, real fear showed in his eyes. He looked at his lawyers, but they only stared at Elena in shocked silence. 10 minutes ago, Elena said, stepping closer until Silas had to look down at her, I filed a full freeze on every account in your name. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, the holding companies in the country, even the payroll for your legal team. Every single dollar you own is frozen by the Securities and Exchange Commission. They are looking into charges against you for serious crimes. You have no money left, Silas. You cannot pay your lawyers. You cannot pay your security. You cannot even buy a coffee in the cafeteria. You are broke. You are lying, Silas said quietly. His confident front completely fell apart. His voice rose in a panicked tone. You can't freeze my accounts without a federal order. I have protection. I have connections. You have nothing, Elena snapped sharply. Her voice cut him off like a whip. "You're a parasite in a fancy suit. You spent your whole life hiding behind an old man, waiting for him to die so you could take his money. You thought you could come after my daughter? You thought you could use laws to take a child. You're just a scared little boy playing a game you don't even understand. If you try to make that order happen, the judge will throw it out as soon as he sees the SEC froze your company. You're finished." Silas stared at her. His chest rose and fell fast and unevenly. He pulled his phone out with shaking hands and called his personal banker. He held the phone to his ear and listened for 10 seconds. His face went completely pale. He dropped the phone. It smashed loudly on the marble floor. His lawyers looked at him. They understood the money was gone. Without a word, they quickly turned and walked away, leaving him behind to save themselves. Jack stepped forward and stood next to Elena. He looked down at Silas, who was shaking badly in his expensive suit. "Julian is waiting for my call," Silas said quietly, eyes darting nervously between Jack and Elena. "If I don't call him, he'll take Belle from her school. You can't stop him." Jack smiled, a cold, frightening smile. "Julian isn't at the school, Silas. Julian is waiting for you in your office." Julian sat tied to a heavy wooden chair in the middle of Silas Vance's large, empty penthouse office. His hands were tightly bound behind his back. The burned side of his face hurt with a dull ache. The glass doors swung open. Jack walked in, followed by Elena and the now broken Silas. Jack grabbed Silas by the back of the neck and pushed him hard across the room. Silas fell onto a soft rug and scrambled backward, scared. Jack walked over to Julian and stood right in front of him. "I told you to leave my place," Jack said clearly. "I gave you a chance to walk away, but I knew you'd come straight back for your money." Julian looked up angrily and spat on the floor. "You got lucky, but you're still just a mechanic who doesn't know the full danger. You're not brave enough to finish this." Jack didn't shout or lose control. He looked at Julian with deep, tired pity. He gave a powerful and crushing speech that broke down every hope the mercenary had left. "You really think this is about being tough enough to hurt people?" Jack asked. He walked slowly around the tied-up chair. "You think you're better because you're willing to follow orders for money? Look at the man paying you, Julian. Look at Silas hiding on the floor like someone defeated. You gave up your face, your life, and whatever little you had left to serve people who see you as useless. Victor Sterling left you to die in that basement while he tried to save himself. Silas Vance tried to sell you out the moment his money was gone. You're not a professional. You're just someone fooled by a loyalty that isn't returned." Julian tightened his jaw and glanced at Silas. Silas wouldn't meet his eyes and looked away, full of shame. "You spent 5 years healing from your burns and planning revenge against me," Jack said. He stopped in front of Julian and lowered his face until they were close. "You blamed me for your pain. But I didn't lock you in that basement, Julian. I didn't start the fire. Morgan did. A woman pushed to the edge by your cruel boss. She chose to end her own life to protect her daughter. You lost because you didn't understand a mother's fierce love. And you're losing today because you keep underestimating me." Jack took out a lighter from his pocket. It was the same one with a name engraved on it, the one that had caused all the trouble 10 years ago. He dropped the lighter on Julian's lap. "I'm not going to hurt you," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm going to leave you here tied up. The agents outside are coming in now. They will find you. You will spend the rest of your life in a prison. Every day you will see your burned face in the mirror and remember you lost everything to a mechanic and a lawyer." Jack turned from Julian. He went to where Silas was still sitting on the expensive rug. Jack grabbed Silas by the front of his suit and pulled him up, pushing him hard against his own desk. "Listen to me, you weak coward," Jack said, holding Silas in place. "You hid behind lawyers. You used papers to try to take my child away. You thought you could treat my family like a business deal, but you will leave this place in handcuffs. You will lose your good name. You are going to lose your freedom. And every time you close your eyes in your prison cell, I want you to remember exactly who put you there." Elena stepped forward and stood beside Jack. Her eyes shone with a strong, clear victory. She had waited 5 long years for this moment. Now she delivered the final powerful words. "You built your whole life on the false idea of power, Silas," Elena said. Her voice echoed through the empty penthouse, clear and sharp. "You thought having money made you untouchable. You believed that wearing fancy suits and paying off judges lets you control people's lives. But real power isn't about money. Power means being ready to give up everything for the people you care about. Victor didn't have that. My brother didn't have that. And you don't either. You have nothing inside." She took a step closer to make sure Silas heard every word. "In 5 minutes, the feds will take this building," Elena continued. "They will find the hidden servers we just sent them. They will find proof of every illegal bribe, every secret deal, and all the evidence showing you planned to hurt a child. They will trace the money you used for Julian's operation. You will go away, Silas. You will wear prison clothes, eat bad food, and no one in the business world will ever remember your name." Silas looked at her. His lips shook badly. The proud, strong image he showed was gone. All that was left was a scared and weak man. He fell against the desk, quietly crying. He covered his face with his hands completely broken. Jack let go of Silas's suit and stepped back, clearly disgusted. "Let's go home," Jack said to Elena. They didn't look back as they left the penthouse. Silas was left crying on the floor, and Julian was still tied to a chair. They took the elevator down. The heavy doors closed, shutting away what was left of Victor Sterling's harmful past. As they walked through the big lobby of the Genesis building, a team of federal agents arrived in full gear. The agents rushed in to take control of the elevators and carry out the careful plan Elena had made. Jack and Elena stepped outside into the cool evening air. The heavy storm had finally ended. The thick gray clouds were moving away, showing the warm, fading orange light of the sunset. They got into Jack's truck and drove in complete silence. The rush of adrenaline slowly faded, leaving behind a deep feeling of tiredness and relief. At last, they pulled into the driveway of their quiet home in the suburbs. The porch light was on. Jack turned off the engine. He sat still in the driver's seat for a moment and looked at his hands. They were rough and worn from hard work. These hands belonged to a man who had spent 10 years fighting against lies, wealthy enemies, and danger. And he had won. He turned toward Elena. She was looking at him. Her face was soft, filled with quiet love. "It's over," Elena said quietly. "It's really over now. The problems are gone. Silas is caught. Julian is locked away for good. No one is coming after her anymore. We ended the threat." "We ended the threat," Jack said. He reached over and took her hand, their fingers linked tightly. "Thank you. For everything." "You don't need to thank me, Jack," Elena said with a gentle smile. "She's my daughter, too." They walked inside. The house felt warm and smelled like dinner. Belle sat at the kitchen island with a big textbook open in front of her. She was biting the end of a yellow pencil. She looked up when they came in. She was 14, bright-eyed, and safe. "Hey," Belle said with a relaxed smile. "You're late. I was just about to get some pizza." "We got stuck at work," Jack said as he came into the kitchen. He wrapped his big arms around her shoulders and kissed the top of her blonde hair. He held her a little longer than usual. "But now it's all done. No more late nights. Just us." Belle leaned back into his hug, not knowing about the tough fight they had just finished. She looked over at Elena, who stood by the door, watching with a calm, happy smile. "Good," Belle said simply. "Because I need help with this algebra homework, and neither of you can leave until I get it." Jack laughed, a strong, warm laugh that filled the room. He pulled up a chair next to her and looked at the math book. The heavy weight of the past 10 years lifted from his broad shoulders, melting away into the quiet, simple peace of a normal evening. The biggest problem now was just a tricky math problem. He knew Morgan was watching them somewhere and would be proud. Jack knew the dark times were gone for good, and their lives finally belonged to them. If you enjoyed watching Jack's strong effort to keep his family safe against all challenges, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel Infidelity Director. We would love to know what you think in the comments. Did Morgan's final choice change how you saw her? And what did you think about Elena's smart move to stop Silas Vance? Thank you very much for watching our story today. Remember, no matter how dark things get, the strong and true love of a family can overcome any problem and guide the way to a bright future.